Thank you very much. The 10 francs to each of your account will be transferred. Thank you for clapping. I normally never get claps at the end of the show, so I normally pay people to clap at the beginning, because we will all know that the end of the show will not be as exciting as the beginning has been. I love excitement, I love enthusiasm, but I also love surprise and anticipation. So first of all, a warm welcome to all of you to this wonderful panel at AI House on Shadow AI. My name is Akhilesh. I'm a partner with KPMG, and I'm responsible for the cyber practice for KPMG globally. And I've been excited, not about just being in this room, but being in this room with all of you and some of these experts here. By now, you figured out that I'm the moderator. So the moderator have one privilege and several disadvantages. The privilege is that I act like a traffic light signal. I can say who goes, who stops. I have been given this privilege by the god of AI House, and I hope these guys will abide by that. But I have a disadvantage, which basically means that typically they put somebody as a moderator, a guy who talks well but knows nothing about the subject matter. They say that all of this content will come from these guys, and here's a guy who acts like a clown and just makes sure that the traffic light signals work for your advantage.
Well, Akhilesh, we are autonomous systems. We don't follow the traffic lights.
Oh, absolutely,
so
absolutely. Yeah, your autonomous system, I love that. I think I should have been better prepared. It's not as nice as there, but I think it'll be good. But one thing as a moderator I've learned is that more than anything, I am the representative of all of you. All of you have chosen to invest an hour of your time, and that's valuable. You could have gone and watched a Netflix movie, or even listened to the President Trump's speech for the 7th time again to figure out. But you chose to invest that 1 hour here. So I have this burden on my head to make sure that 100 human hours get invested for the right reason. And for that, I worked with this panel. And amazingly, I realized that they know so much about the topic that I can act like devil's advocate today. So these guys are prepared, and I hope you too are, for some excitement. But before we go any further, let me request some introduction, because this amazing panel deserves a round of applause once again. Navrina.
Thank you so much. So excited to be here. Navrina Singh, founder and CEO of Credo AI. We are the leading AI governance platform provider in the world. We actually created the AI governance category 6 years ago, before it was hip, which is really exciting. I started this company after spending 20 years building AI products at Qualcomm, Microsoft, Mozilla, and many others. Helped also launch Mozilla AI. And for the past 5.5 years, I've been advising the White House on AI policy, as well as working with governments across the world, especially Europe, India, Canada, and others. So excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Navrina.
Yeah.
Petar.
Hi, everyone. Very happy to be here. There was so much interest in this topic, so very excited to kind of unpack it. My name is Petar Tsankov, CEO and co-founder of LatticeFlow AI. We help enterprises implement AI governance, so helping them, how do you map all these high-level principles, including, the shadow AI topics, to actual technical controls, and how do you run technical evaluations. My background, I'm a deep tech entrepreneur. That's my second company. The first one was in the Web3 space, actually, security, that got acquired by PwC just before LatticeFlow AI started. And this time, we're not getting acquired yet. We actually just acquired a company on December 24th last year and announced it yesterday. It's a Dublin-based company called AI Sonar that is the state-of-the-art for AI discovery, very timely, I would say, now to kind of describe on what we've learned about the space of shadow AI. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Congratulations on your acquisition. Thank you.
All right, hi everyone. Great to be here. Thank you for joining us. My name is Menna, El-Assady. I think I'm representing academia on this panel. So I'm a professor of computer science at ETH Zurich, and my work is on human AI collaboration. So I run a group that works on explainability, the integration of human feedback into models, and also the adaptation of AI-based systems. So how do we actually manage co-adaptive systems that don't just automate tasks away, but actually do that in an adaptive manner, where sometimes we need humans, sometimes we want to automate things, and how do we integrate that in the notion of intelligence augmentation, where both AI agents and human agents get to do the tasks that they're best suited to do. So our group is answering questions like, how do we actually measure agency? How do we figure out when do we need to explain different things to different stakeholders? And how do we integrate all of their feedback back to the models? And I'm excited to unpack the topic of shadow AI here.
Thank you so much. Round of applause for my panel again. Thank you so much. Seb, you don't get 10 francs for free. You have to work hard. All right. I'm super excited and super scared. Super excited because I couldn't have asked for a better panel than this, and super scared because I have 3 sets of people with whom I'm always scared. The police, I never do anything wrong, but I'm still scared. My wife, and the professors. Because they always tell you what you did wrong. So I've got a professor on my panel. Hopefully I'll pass today, but I'll try that. All right, so one of the core issue of the topic today is shadow AI. And we all know, like shadow IT, it is something which we don't approve, but it exists. Before I start the discussion, a show of hands, how many of you in your companies, educational institutes, or your life use or have seen use of shadow AI? Okay, all right, so 30%, 70% are lying, but that's okay, we'll live with that. So about 30% people there. Navrina, let me start with you. How do you describe shadow AI and the issues which surround this, and what are the biggest concerns you see?
Absolutely. But maybe I'll ask a separate question. How many of you in the room are engineers? Okay, great. How many business? Okay, great. So what we are going to try and do on this panel is provide you enough technical details and enough business details, because shadow AI is a very technical topic, and I just want to make sure that we are unpacking and making sense of it for everybody. So with that context, if you talk to mostly a technologist, a shadow AI is actually seen as a very careless thing. It is actually tools employees and folks in the organizations are using without the knowledge of the leadership. At Credo AI, we actually think of shadow AI as value, because your employees are going to AI tools that actually provide a lot of efficiency or help them with their jobs, and they're doing that because it's providing value. The problem that ends up happening with shadow AI is essentially when it is unmanaged. When the organization does not know certain tools are being used, and the employees are actually sharing information that might be proprietary to an organization via these tools, and thus increasing the risk surface area for the organization. So when we think about shadow AI, actually, it's a very interesting tension that gets created, because it is a lot of value that your employees are gravitating towards, but it's also a little bit of leadership failure, because you have this unmanaged set of assets where you might be exposing your organization to. So the biggest challenge that we see in our work with really implementing the technical controls needed to not only discover where the employees are using these systems, but also how do you manage those risks, how do you make sure they're compliant with the organization, is a notion of trust overhang. And it is essentially the same thing as capability overhang in AI, which is when there's certain level of capabilities AI provides, but employees and people don't know how to use them in the best way. So when they start to uncover it, breakthroughs seem to happen much more faster than they actually are. And what's happening with shadow AI is the trust overhang is drastically increasing, because now you have all this unmanaged AI being used across your organization, but there's no accountability, there's no control, there's no coherence. So as a result of which, your governance is not able to keep pace with everything that is absolutely needed for your business. So I would say the trust overhang is the biggest challenge that we see that our software tries to solve for the organizations.
Can I jump in? I wanted to give some context and why this is actually happening now, which I think explains because it is a very new topic. I kind of agree on the side that it's a very positive thing. Shadow AI is not a failure.
So before you go that,
not a problem.
I want to come in there.
Yeah.
So actually, I want to ask you, in your view, is shadow AI good or bad? I was unclear about your answer.
I actually think it's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
You know why? Because
but you talk so many bad things about it.
Because, again, I think the problem is shadow AI is good because it's enabling employees to go and gravitate towards capabilities that's helping them unlock a lot of value for themselves and potentially for the organization. But
so
the
you would be a proponent of shadow AI, yes or no?
I am a proponent of shadow AI. I'm not a proponent of unmanaged shadow AI.
But the moment you manage it, it's no longer shadow AI.
You'll be surprised. It's actually, you could say it that way, but the key thing there is there's accountability lies with the leadership, right? So I, as my company's CEO, I want to make sure my employees are not only becoming productive, valuable, but they're also managing the risk, and they have an alignment to what we at the company believe in, right? So I'm accountable, but I don't know what's happening in my organization, so that's the gap.
We'll come for that. I really appreciate you ducked the main accusation well, and I like that. But we'll come to you. As I said that I'm the devil's advocate, which basically I said that I'm also representing you, so all of you in the rooms are devils for that reason, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But I'm going to play that role. Let me turn to you, Petar. You want to come in saying something different? Yeah.
I wanted to say it's positive and give context on like why is this happening now. So the positive side is that that's exactly what we want, right? We want a lot of adoption.
Yeah.
So you almost like see conflicting numbers actually of what's happening. Like we have these studies, like the MIT popular one, like 95% of projects failing. At the same time, it's like actually all the employees are using this every day, and everybody's concerned that it's like too much usage. So it's almost like contradicting of what's going on. And I think there's a very clear explanation of why this is happening right now, which also kind of later we can talk about like the different types of shared AI, and how can you actually do the controls, because it's a very positive thing that's happening that actually shows that you cannot stop adoption. It's just very organic, bottom-up expanding. And the reason that has happened, I would say later, like end of last year, is that really we see how AI is no longer something that is in the hands of AI researchers or data scientists that are very smart with PhDs, knowing how to build these applications. This has fundamentally changed in 2025. We see we have all these open models that are now available, very powerful, very low cost. You can run them on the laptop. You can run them anywhere in the infrastructure. And that's exactly what we see happening. And just take that in combination with all the tools and frameworks that are available to basically for an everyday person to just take and put together, run these models, put them together and solve useful problems. And that has just kind of clicked together last year. And that's kind of back to the point of, what we're missing really right now are the controls. How do we actually bring more visibility of what's happening? Because, of course, there's implications for organizations. So it's a very, very positive thing that this is happening. The challenge is now how do we bring sufficient visibility so we don't, organizations don't collapse.
Okay, I love it. Okay, so first of all, you guys are built upon each other. So you're on one side in some ways that weakens me a little bit, but we'll try to get better and even about it. So you said that it is good. You agree that it is good. There are a lot of things in our world which are good because they just happen to be like this, right? So is it you accepted it to be good? Or if you have a choice to do less shadow AI or more shadow AI, would you go to less shadow AI or more shadow AI?
Oi. I mean, it's not like,
it's a good thing. You should say more shadow AI.
Buying to minus, but I do enjoy the fact that there's a lot of adoption and use. So
Is that like a compromising situation?
I like that. Well, we have to bring the visibility, but I would not. Yeah, so I think it's overall good. If today we stand
overall
and say,
good, but I don't want it to be more.
Would you have zero shadow AI or some? I definitely want to have some shadow AI.
Some. But you won't
so important.
catalyze the shadow AI.
Sorry?
You won't catalyze the shadow AI. You won't.
Yeah, you want to leverage it and you want to put just enough control. So
okay, these guys are smart with words, but we'll get there.
Well, maybe a controversial point to the point. So you would not take shadow AI to zero. Forget about this.
I get it. But would you make it?
It's like cyber security.
Yeah.
You're secure. You have a bunch of bugs everywhere. That's just part of reality. So it would exist. The question is, how do we?
Perfect. But I love both of your answers. So far, you're winning. So far, as I think. So.
Can I add a perspective?
Yes.
And I certainly want Menna to get a chance as well. But I think shadow AI getting to zero is actually an indication of the kind of company you are, because if you're AI native right now, guess what? My teams are using all and every new AI tool in the world. And we don't have an issue of someone hiding that or not sharing that they're using a new tool, because when you get the value, you want to share it with the rest of the organization. However, because we serve Fortune 500s, we are serving upwards of like 20% of Fortune 500s right now. The reason that they have shadow AI is there is an inconsistency. That innovation that Peter was talking about is really bottoms up, but the leaders haven't really caught up, and that causes tension. So when you see a lot of shadow AI, I think there's a correlation to how innovative your company is versus not.
I love that. I think this is a great summary to say, and thank you so much, Navrina, for doing that. It is a healthy tension.
Yeah.
You cannot eliminate it, and therefore it's not worth fighting the battle. there are ways by which you can leverage it and make the most out of it. So I love that. Thank you both. But as they say that the final word is always from the professor.
So I think, like, for me, it's actually not something that is inherently good or bad. It's a really interesting societal experiment that we're running. So we're unleashing this technology and trying to kind of figure out what is kind of the pathway that people take. And I'm a strong believer in human-centered design and trying to kind of really figure out, if you put something in the hands of different people, what do they make of it, and how do we engineer solutions that empower people to do the best that they want to do. So for me, it's actually just observing what is happening and how do we actually get to create solutions that basically fit in these gaps that we're observing, right? I remember before the pandemics, like 7-8 years ago, we had a panel with a lot of scientists on the topic of trust in AI. Mm-hmm. And we were debating, over and under trust and how do we calibrate that. And it was like a pure academic discussion on how do we define that, what would happen if people kind of over-rely and all of that. But back then, it was just like different hypotheses of what are the technical solutions to what we could be facing, like this thing, and how do we actually counteract that in contextualized manner. So how do we bring in the context where people are using that, the solutions that they need to have? And after that, going out to different types of audiences, from like going into public spaces, talking to kids, talking to elderly people, trying to understand society's perspective on AI, it's really interesting to see the mental models that people create after using AI. So I usually start talks with, do you think it's a magic box? Or do you think it's the devil? Like, would you want to use AI? What's your experience and so on? And everyone comes up with a story. And everyone kind of creates their story based on their interactions. And the questions I try to figure out is, how do we calibrate that mental model based on where people are standing? So how do we take people by their hand and try to kind of give them the right context to adapt their understanding of AI in the different kind of circumstances that they're using it? Every one of you is an expert in your own circumstances. It's whether you're using AI for getting a recipe to cook or whether you're using AI at work, you're kind of the expert of your own circumstance. And I think our solutions should be about empowering people in these circumstances to basically use that in the best way possible. So I think what we might discuss later, a solution here is something that we developed years ago, would be co-adaptive guidance. So in the context on when you're using a particular AI model, can we give you the right level of guidance to contextualize your understanding to what this model is doing, whether we can explain the decision-making pathway that the model is taking, and get feedback from you to this model in order to adapt it. And I can unpack that a little bit later if you're interested, in order to kind of figure out how that would look like as a technological innovation.
We'll certainly come to that. I think I appreciate the way you are trying to put it all together. It's a combination of technology, leadership, and the human part of it. It all comes together. So I'll definitely do a follow-up on how you believe we can solve it in a more technological way. So far, what we have established is that shadow AI is not all that bad. We have established that shadow AI is good for pushing the innovation boundaries further, and also asking the leadership team of the organizations to give better resources than what they might have given. It's like my daughter telling me, saying that, yeah, you want me to drive the car, but all the time with you sitting, I also want to drive the car without you sitting so that I can experiment different things and all that. So, and I appreciate that. It's a healthy push and attention which I think organization. We also established that it's important to manage, the way Navrina said that. It's important to manage. We cannot let it be in an uncontrolled manner, even though we have it. So let me turn to Petar. You have found solutions to this problem, to say how you discover or you're working.
We bought a company to solve it.
And we solved it ourselves.
So you are,
good job. Keep
there's only one professor and one consultant on this panel. Yeah. Don't talk like consultant. Tell us, what do you think are the technological approaches to solve this problem?
Yeah, I think before getting to solutions, it's important to refine a little bit, like what are the different kinds of shadow AI,
sure.
And then we can think about how to actually detect this. And that's, I think, the key challenge here. When you think about solving shadow AI, you're not actually solving one problem. You're solving really 5, 6 problems in parallel. And this will make sense in a second. So there's kind of shadow AI back in the day started really with this, the companies use a lot of SaaS applications, and not just ChatGPT, now also Slack, Notion, all the tools are using some kind of AI capabilities. And these are becoming now key, and so a lot of the organizations have explicit AI governance workflow. So you actually need to know, does this vendor use AI? Does the vendor of this vendor, so then you get like a whole supply chain of vendors, and you need to know all the models, everything that is behind this. So that's more of a transparency issue, like how do you get vendors to disclose what you have, which is kind of quite understood problem, I would say, in other spaces, like because SaaS management has always been a problem. But what has been emerging, kind of this was maybe 2024, 25 type of problem. At the end of last year, what has been again emerging is AI shifting from SaaS to really in your infrastructure. Like you have so many available, powerful models from China, from everywhere, that it's now, that's very easy to deploy locally. So you have a lot of on-prem models. You have a lot of, models you host in your clouds. You have a bunch of, very simple to use tools like low-code, no-code tools for employees to put this together. And that's a very challenging problem then to solve, because it's not about, hey, you don't have a vendor to ask. Like I can go to Notion and ask them, well, what do you use, Quen, or what kind of models do you have behind to check if that's compliance with our internal AI governance policy. But once it transitions and starts running in your infrastructure, then your mindset is much more into kind of cybersecurity solutions, because these are the processes, flows that are running in your organization. So that's what we have seen. So there's kind of SaaS applications, you have embedded AI there, you have like cloud on-premise models that are running, then you have all the easy to use tools like Diffie. There's a bunch of those that you can quickly put together applications. So these are all different sources of AI applications that are popping up and employees are using. And some of them do require quite fundamentally different solutions to actually discover and gain visibility into where these are.
Perfect. Love it. I think we also learned a little bit about different ways the shadow AI, different types of shadow AI and how it grows. Let me turn to Navrina. One of the big challenge organizations face is that, yes, you can't completely eliminate it. It is there. You would like to manage it, but by the time you discover, some things are already happening. So you don't discover it on day 0, you'll discover it maybe on day 30, day 300, or whatever. How does an organization manage the risks and liabilities during that period? So for example, in the past, we had all shadow AI, so shadow IT, and it was okay because shadow IT basically meant that IT organization is not giving me the best tool, I'll go download it from somewhere, source it from somewhere. It still came as somewhat trusted source, not necessarily always, but somewhat trusted that it did what it was designed to for millions of people. But now shadow AI has a mind of its own. So it can come, and it doesn't come with any level of trust. So for example, if I use shadow AI in my organization and make a choice, decision, outcome, answer, who's accountable? Is it the organization? Is it that model? Is it that human? Or is it somebody says, you shouldn't have trusted it? How do we solve that?
Yeah, no, great question. And I think that's the gap I was mentioning. At the end of the day, whose job is on the line is the CEO, the C-level. But I do want to go to something that Peter said, which is really important, because to figure out the risk, I think understanding that AI supply chain is really critical. So there's this new notion, which, by the way, is becoming a part of a lot of policies, including National Defense Authorization Act in US, called the AI Bill of Materials. And it's actually a very hard technical problem than Peter was mentioning. And let me unpack that for you. The reason is right now, as you have the applications that you're buying, then you also have these applications powered by models, and then you have these models which are built on data sets. Some of those data sets might be proprietary, some you might not even know where they exist. So there's a lot of unpacking that needs to happen in this AI Bill of Materials. So to answer your question, Akhilesh, around the risk, at Credo AI, we govern at the use case level, at the application level. And what that means is, let's say, you as an organization bought a third-party tool to build customer service application or customer service chatbot. So we look at the customer service chatbot level to really figure out what is the risk. My organization cares that my customer service chatbot is highly reliable. It does not recommend competitor products. It is very nice and not toxic, and it is fair, as an example, right? So what we do is we have technical controls that will unpack all these requirements I have as an organization. Reliability, how do I measure the precision, the accuracy of these systems? Toxicity, what are the toxicity thresholds I want to be managing? Fairness, what do I need to look for? Is certain demographics or something beyond that, et cetera. And then we actually go into your data and AI stack to really make sure that you're meeting those requirements. The second level, which is really important, is the models, right? And one of the unfortunate parts of the past, especially 3 years, is there's a complete vanity war happening right now, which says, my model does better than your model because I met this benchmark, right? I'm better on humanities last exam, or I'm better on SWE bench. I think the problem with those vanity metrics is they're not contextual, because so much of the model used within that application is dependent on, is it healthcare, is it financial services, is it CPG? What is the actual use that you're going to have for it? So we actually have developed something called as model trust scores, which look at obviously publicly available benchmarks, but then again, within the context of use, figure out, is that useful or not? And as Peter was mentioning, especially in open source, with the proliferation of DeepSeek, fascinating stat I heard is right now, DeepSeek is the most used model in Africa because Huawei is like very proliferated there. And so imagine when you are using DeepSeek models, which are not very secure, and now you're applying it to applications of national security, like that is a big problem, right? And then lastly, at the data set level, the challenge there is, if we all are using Claude Code or if we all are using ChatGPT, we don't really have a good sense of what the data sources these systems are trained on. We have more control if we are building our own models. So I think that is a big problem right now we are encountering in terms of risk, when we don't have visibility in the models that we are bringing into our organization that are trained on data sets that we have zero clue about.
One big counter challenge to you, and I want to take a deep breath because I say that. In my world of cybersecurity, when I ask people saying, what do they worry the most about? When I ask top-level people, they will say AI security, identity, this, that, and the other. But I actually go down to the person who solves the problem. He'll say, patching is a big problem for me. Old passwords is a big problem for me. So despite all of these big things, people are still struggling to get the basics right. So this AI bomb, how easy is it to do it versus just believe that we can solve it? How do you really get AI bomb for a model? You talked about DeepSeek. I'll not talk about DeepSeek. I'll talk about any model. How do we get to it? Because they're all black boxes right now.
And great question. And by the way, I think you missed my statement where I said AI bill of materials and unpacking the AI supply chain is a very complex problem.
I would say it's not even a problem worth solving in my view.
Oh, actually, it is totally worth solving.
I have a disagreement on that point, so I want to...
I think it's totally worth solving. I think the issue right now we are having is this circular vendor economy. And what I mean by that is, let's say if you're using, and by the way, I'm a big fan of Lovable. So let's say if you're using Lovable. Lovable is dependent on Anthropic Claude models. We don't know what Anthropic Claude models are trained on, et cetera, right? So the circularity that I'm talking about in the vendor ecosystem is difficult to do. Having said that, this is why we get very excited about, within Credo AI, we have something called as third-party risk management for vendors. If I am a company, let's say MasterCard, one of our customers, and I'm buying from a new application provider, and let's assume Lovable in this case, you can actually now start to create sort of like a SOC 2 for AI at the procurement time. Because you can literally say, I'm not going to allow, once I've discovered the shadow AI that some of my employees are using Lovable, what do I end up doing? Now I can actually mandate at the procurement time, if I want this to be an enterprise-wide tool, here are certain requirements you have to fulfill. And so what that creates is this economic incentive, if you will. I, as an application provider, to be able to sell into this enterprise, I have to meet those requirements. So what ends up happening is you are creating this sort of like this incentive model where enterprises are like, okay, I can bring in something because now I understand the risk, and the other one is able to sell more AI because now they are being more transparent.
Thank you. I think you want to come in here, please.
Yeah, so I think like
you'll come in as well.
It's great to see basically that this research is translating into policy, because like for years we've been looking at research on what you could call supply chains. We're looking at provenance traces, so basically looking at everything that happens in a chain from training all the way to individual interactions, and like looking at provenance graphs and how we can manage that and how we can interject within these contexts. So part of that is a solution where you kind of build like a supply chain management system. You can create a lot of like different places for checkpoints, also like legal checks and all of that. But part of what you were asking earlier is, are we even able to know what is happening within the model? And from an explainability perspective, I think we don't know everything that the model is actually doing. So like we can do first order explainability, we can do associations. There's a lot of research going on in mechanistic interpretability that is really getting us to a really good understanding on what's happening within the models. But there's a lot of kind of second order associations here and things that are not immediately obvious that might happen in edge cases that we don't know about. And I think getting to things where we have like red teaming and like a lot of security type things, I think you guys are working on that as well, is kind of like the band-aid we can put on that until we have solved the actual technical and research challenge, because I don't think we actually know what is causing a model to react in a specific way from a very mechanistic perspective. That will need years of research, and I think until we get there, having all of these solutions that just like try to navigate the circumstances we're in is kind of our best bet out there.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I wanted to challenge a bit, and the way you phrase it, like, is the AI bomb is about the model. So it's actually less about the model, what's inside the model. It's actually what is within this application. If it's Slack, what's packages are used, these packages, and then the whole supply chain, what models and so on. So if you want to, let's say, ban something like DeepSeek or Qwen, whatever, you could actually do this. And the way I see it, this is actually the earlier easy shadow AI problem that was popping up in the days. And the AI bomb, this is not a new thing. We had the SBOM, which is the software bill of materials for years in security. For the same problem, you need to know all the libraries, dependencies, vulnerabilities that might be in those. So this is kind of, in my view, kind of easy to solve. So it's a challenge. So we do hear about it all the time because you need to know this to apply your policies. But this just to kind of, to let you imagine what this is. This is like the ingredients in the food or the latte you're drinking. I cannot drink milk, so I would like to have the simple list of ingredients so I can check my policy. Okay, I can actually drink that. So this is really what the AI bomb of bill of materials is about, like providing this list. The big challenge is AI moving, like shadow AI moving in your infrastructure. You don't have a vendor to ask. I can check my bill of where my company is spending money. I can see the Slack bill. I'm going to go, I know we're using Slack. I'm going to go and ask them, and they'll have to give me this information or I'll just cancel my subscription. But if it's in your infrastructure, it's like you're shifting the mindset. Then that's a cybersecurity topic that you would never fully eliminate. So that's a kind of the new, I would say, bigger, longer-term challenge of shadow AI that we need to be tackling now.
Thank you so much. I've got 21 minutes to go, and I promise to all of these guys that I'll have at least 15 minutes of Q&A from all of you. So you got 6 minutes for me to talk to these guys, and so that you can think of some questions. We'll have the ability to take maybe 4 or 5 questions, depending upon how short the answers are, and these guys are going to be very, very fast. I want to get to the last part of this few questions which I had from my perspective. We established good, need to be managed, AI bomb important to whatever extent we can. Should black boxes will exist, we'll have to figure out a way to do it. There are technological and operational ways to solve it. There are also contractual ways to somewhat eliminate and minimize possibilities. But let's get down to the real thing. Organizations are made up of people who make decisions independently. And we see a huge silo approach appearing when it comes to AI. When it was technology, you could find a CTO problem or a CDO problem. Now, AI is not one person's problem. While we say that, yes, CEOs should kind of deal with it, but it is highly democratized. And the best value of AI will only come when it becomes more and more democratized. How do you think that we can raise the awareness in the minds of people who actually use shadow AI? And one way is to solve the problem top-down, which we all talked about. What is the way to solve this bottom up?
That's a perfect transition to the point I wanted to get
Yes.
at. So I think there's the one perspective of it, which is like the security perspective. I think we really need to do that work. But imagine people in the organization all want to be good citizens. They want to do their best job. They really want to be educated about everything around them. How do we empower them? So how do we actually give them the tools in order to be that person? And I think this brings me to this whole research area of mixed initiative interactions and mixed initiative systems, where one topic is co-adaptive guidance. And co-adaptive guidance is basically asking the question of, given a particular context and what we know about the user's perspective, what type of guidance do they need at this particular moment in order for them to do a better job, or in order for them to be more informed, more educated? And there are different levels of guidance. So we talk about orienting, directing, and prescribing guidance, depending on how much we can assess from a systems perspective. So say the system knows it's a very uncertain decision. We don't have enough data. We don't know how to make that decision at all. And we want to give support to the user. Then it would kind of suggest multiple different solutions and let the user decide. It will really engage their critical thinking. Whereas in other areas where we have done the same type of action over and over again, given a particular context, we will go all the way to directing guidance, where it gives you one solution and tells you yes or no, or even automate it. And there's a lot of different models for guidance that are, we're not talking about LLMs here. We're talking about sequential pattern mining models and other types of techniques that learn from user interactions and try to figure out how can we both be the most effective in that context. This is long-standing research for years, and it was done with multi-agent systems way before people started talking about agentic AI. So I think bringing back this conversation and building on top of that body of knowledge, actual solutions that go out to market. So this is kind of a call to both of you and other people in the room who are actually creating these types of systems to go and look at all of the different techniques that we can provide in order to empower users in their context and really be the most effective given what we know about that interaction and what we know about the context of the application. And these solutions don't need to live in a cloud. They can be like a guardian agent on your own computer, not exposed to anything, just giving you support when you need it. So imagine you have your AI expert on hand 24/7. Whenever you're stuck and you're trying to make a decision, should I put this information into the model or not? Should I make this decision or that? Is it actually explainable or not? You can basically get that guidance right when you need it, even before asking. So this, I think, is a vision, if you think about how that could be implemented, that we can actually achieve based on the current technology. We just need to think more from a human-centered perspective and think about people trying to be good workers and good citizens in their day-to-day job.
I think that was a very important point. And there's a reason why this guardian angel analogy, because really what's happening is the way organizations are thinking about governing AI is about creating these catalogs and everything. This completely collapses in the next 12 to 24 months. Forget about this. That's why I'm skeptical that we'll never get to 0% shadow AI. So it's all about, I also like awareness, educating people. I like people, but I'm skeptical we'll get there. So it's really about how do you, at this scale, you collapse. So you don't have full visibility to figure out guardrails and everything per use case. So the only way is exactly what you see, kind of this highly automated guardian angel that is actually just distilling all the insights and kind of think of it as in cybersecurity, just raising alarms whenever it's needed. So there's a lot of things that you would never know that is going on even. There's, that's very, very important point. That I like the analogy of this autonomous guardian angel.
And I also like your balance and optimism in some ways. So love it. Thank you. Navrina, you have any points?
Yeah, maybe a slightly different perspective. So, as a technologist, sometimes you can fall in love with the technology and just talk about the technical solutions. And having implemented Credo AI across multiple Fortune 500 companies, I've realized that technical, we got it, so come to us. I think it's the bigger, organizational AI literacy and organizational cultural challenge, which is so messy. And before I go into that, what we are seeing is emergence of very interesting enterprises right now. You have AI native companies built ground up from AI. You have AI forward who did have some AI muscle and can move forward fast. And then you have the dinosaurs who are trying to reinvent and cannot reinvent, right? So I don't want to talk about AI native. I think that's an easier one to solve for because there's this innovation mindset that exists. But when you talk about the AI forward and the dinosaurs, what's ending up happening is, one, shadow AI is treated as a bad thing. Why are you using a tool that the company did not approve? That's bad. And if you report it, it's like bad. That's why I was saying we need to start focusing it on. It's great. You're using new tools. Tell us, what did you learn? What impact did you bring? So one, that's a conversation shifter, right, and value driver. The second thing, which is really critical, is creating responsible use policies, which we are finding in enterprises we work with. Just being very open and honest. We all know you all are using AI tools. Your emails are indication you've just gotten so much better at writing your performance reviews. Great. But as you're using these tools, let's also be stewards of good governance within your organization. And here is our responsible use policy. If you've not registered this tool, let's do that, right? And then the third is really taking, I would say, leadership ownership. Because at the end of the day, yes, it is a lot of bottom-up innovation, but it is a lot of top-down mandate around AI governance and responsible use. I do not think AI is going to be successful if we do not solve the trusted AI issue and AI governance issue from the top-down perspective. So I would say that needs to be solved. Much, I would say, complex than building a technology and a platform, but that is really the need of the hour right now.
I'm not even going to attempt to summarize because what you said is 100 times better than whatever I've said. So thank you so much for saying that. We've got now only 13 minutes left. So I'm going to pick, oh my God. So I'll just see, we'll pick 4 questions and then we will see which one. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, and sorry, can I take the last one? So they got 5. Sorry, if time permits. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and the last one, 5. So you start.
Firstly, thank you for moderating
the
panel so fantastically. Jumping straight to the question, Professor, to you, I actually work in EdTech, so the question is to you. How are you managing curriculum with all this absolutely rapid, year 1 to year 2 in Davos, there's so much happened. How are you managing that?
Curriculum.
And human centricity, since that's your topic, how do you embed that in the curriculum and how do students actually practically manifest any of your human centricity?
Perfect. Curriculum and human centricity. Yes, we'll take all the questions and then we'll try and answer them.
Navrina and Petar, I would like you to dive a little bit deeper inside companies you're working with in terms of who are the people and at which level of the hierarchical ladders they need to be convinced that it won't work to stigmatize shadow AI. It's about enhancing the UI, UX of AI within those companies, internalizing, externalizing. So cracking the nuts of the change management within companies to actually make progress towards this adaptive, co-evolutive AI adoption.
Love it. Thank you. You got the question? Can you move the microphone here? Yeah. If you could just also say a name.
Hello.
Yeah.
Tammy McKenzie, I'm with the Ola Fellowship. We're a think tank, so I have 2 questions. We do science research, research, policy, and tech. The first one for you, I think, Dr. El-Assady, scientific plagiarism. We're having, this is shadow AI use on all parties and kind of poisoning the scientific record. There's that question. The second one, and it may not apply to the people here, we're curious also about at the social level where shadow AI is coming in cybersecurity, defense, military, and criminal activity.
Perfect.
Again, that might be out of scope.
So,
I apologize.
Good point. Thank you. It's here. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Anjali. I'm a strategic lead with Leica Microsystems. I want to move away from the corporate topic a little bit and talk about how shadow AI is actually a big threat in our everyday life as well. I have no idea how my teenager son is using AI, if he's using AI to generate his essay or he's using it to chat like a friend. And the whole concept of suicide bot is really, really scary as a mother.
Wow.
So I want you, Navrina, to touch upon how can a company like Credo AI not just have an influence on the corporate governance, but on a usual day-to-day governance
Great question.
as well.
Thank you so much. And we'll take the last question from the end, and then we'll try to finish all the response in about 6 minutes so that we have 3 minutes to
Or we can take it afterwards as well.
Gideon Ashwanton, UBS Asset Management. We have a bit of an issue with shadow AI since the creativity of individuals using existing tools is getting really creative. So in a banking sector where you have to clamp down on any kind of shadow AI, how do we give individuals the ability to test functionalities and be creative without jeopardizing the whole company as a whole?
Perfect. Okay, so we got company, UBS type of company. How do they manage? We got social, human level via society. we've got curriculum, we've got the scientific plagiarism and all that. So if I could request you to take the curriculum and scientific plagiarism quickly, and then I'll request you to take on the social part of it.
And the stakeholder part.
Yeah, and you could take on the corporate one. Okay, perfect. Okay.
So maybe very quickly, I think we need to really think intentionally about creating spaces for human interaction and critical thinking. So offline spaces, whether it's like in education and corporate and so on, like really think about intentional use of AI. So that's just like a comment here about curriculums. So we are teaching people like the concepts that they need to think through. So I'm teaching interactive machine learning, explainability, feedback, and so on. And we're teaching them the base concepts and all of the variations of it. But we also teach them full stack development and how do you actually create different types of microservices and how do you integrate that throughout the stack. So we created a middleware platform that distills all of the research and exposes that to the students so that they can rapidly build applications. And we're intending to open source that so that other people, like in different companies, and everyone can build on top of the state-of-the-art research. One of the main issues that we have is translation of research to industry, and we're trying to kind of encapsulate all of our best practices and findings into services and put it out there for anyone to prototype that. And this is a way we completely change our curriculum in order to get people to practice and be very attached to the current research developments. In terms of collapse of the research practices, I think there's a big topic, everyone's talking about it, and I think the current state of research will not stand as it is. I think we're going through rapid changes, and there is a lot of talk about basically, on the one hand, AI scientists and like completely kind of replacing human scientists and trying to do verification loops and stuff like that. And on the other hand, really thinking about the value of the current incentives in science. So what is the value of a publication? How do we create like a record that we can keep growing instead of having single PDF files that go somewhere? So there is a lot of talk about that. I can follow up on like at least the current actors in that space and how we can push forward that topic. So I hope that summarizes the views.
Navrina, do you want? Petar, you take on.
So yeah, on the topic of how do you allow kind of basically safe experimentation? So actually that's very simple because you have to remember that most of the use cases are not dangerous and risky. So having a very clear policy on what's actually okay to do is very simple. Clear accountability. So who is employees need to use this, but ultimately a lot of the use cases, almost everything that's deployed today is human in the loop, and somebody else is actually consuming that output and making decisions. That's fine. I mean, you have people that are just kind of leveraging insights from these solutions and so on. So having clear accountability, clear policy on if anything is high risk, autonomous, having it then, of course, run through the model risk management team, which any bank have. So that's really the key to, and then you would get like the vast majority of the things people want to try, they would actually be able to just go ahead and do whatever they want.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll take yours question first because it's an easier one, and then I'll address yours. What we are seeing is, again, the dinosaurs and the AI forward companies, there's an evolution where the boards are actually mandating a key role, whether it's a chief AI officer role or a governance council that needs to be established, and they are actually accountable for when things go wrong. So that means you can actually lose your job, similar to audit committee. You actually are going to have more governance committees actually stemming up. We've been doing a lot of work with investors on making sure in your earnings reports, in your 10K filings, you're reporting on who's responsible and what kind of risk that do you have. But again, it's a very socio-technical issue. So the multi-stakeholder, like your data scientists, your AI governance leaders, your product leaders, are the daily active users and stewards of making the responsible AI policy actually happen. So it's everyone's responsibility, but you do have a accountability stakeholder that's showing up. To your more complex problem, that is the problem I would say that keeps me up at night, and I don't think we are doing enough in that space. So let's talk about kids. The easier answer for me is AI literacy. Like talk about educating not only the companies, obviously teachers and schools about what does responsible use look like, but also kids. I have an 11-year-old daughter. Guess what? I educate her on every tool she is using, when she should not be using, how she should be prompting, what is good, what's bad. But I think there's a bigger opportunity, and this is the work that we've been doing for the past 5.5 years. One component of governance, not the entire governance, is around regulations. And I think that's where regulations are so critical. When you think about AI manipulation, and especially for kids, that is responsibility of every enterprise that is putting out application that is going to manipulate these kids into doing things that we don't want them to do. So I think there's a lot that needs to happen, whether it is on the Takedown Act. I don't know if you've been following it, but think about like nude picture of women and kids online. That is a responsibility government and regulators absolutely need to be forcing on enterprises. So thank you for your question.
Thank you for your question and thank you for your response, because I think this is possibly one of the most significant challenges which we face. I think the organizations have the resources, that they'll figure it out. Educational institutes have the ability to pivot and move on to things. I think it's each one of us as parent, each one of us as the social human beings, the risks which we are facing. Sometimes I feel that some of us have the privilege of knowing a little bit about this topic, but there are so many people who have less understanding of this topic. And I call it there's a big divide between people who are building AI and the people who do not know the limitations and the capabilities of that AI. I'm hugely optimistic, but I think there is that gap which exists. All right, before I wrap up and say a few things, and I'm not even going to attempt to summarize this panel because it's going to be extremely long for me to do that. The amount of insights which we gathered into all of this is great. Let me tell you, the reason this conversation sounded like a devil's advocate is because I took their permission to be a little bit provocative. And they played along because they knew all the answers in a nicer way, but I think they played along. So thank you so much for doing that, which also means that, once again, as a moderator, I know less, and therefore a stupid person can ask more questions than an intelligent person can answer, which they proved right once again. And why did I take that risk? And before I give you the answer to that question, let me tell you a real story of a friend of mine. His name is Papa CJ. He's many things, but I see him as a change agent. And he once told me his incident which happened with him. He was driving from Zurich to Davos. And as he's driving, like most of us Indians, I'm an Indian, very proud Indian, he missed an exit. And he goes 200 meters down and says, oops, now the Google map says that additional 40 kilometers. And he says, who will go 40 kilometers? So he tries the usual Indian trick. You reverse the car. And he starts to drive in the reverse gear on the highway, Zurich to Davos, as we all know. And as he's doing it, there is another car which comes from behind and bangs it. Of course, he's very scared because he's not used to driving in Switzerland. So he waits, and the police car comes and all of that. And after 5-7 minutes of the interrogation, the police guy comes to my friend, Papa CJ, and apologizes. He says, sorry, I think whatever happened was not acceptable, etc., and I hope you're safe. So he says, oh, but is everything okay? He says, no, everything is not okay because we are going to get a drug test done, an alcohol test done on the guy behind because he said that the car was reversing.
Good one.
So what I learned is that if you make Indian mistakes in Switzerland, you are given the benefit of doubt. So if I made some stupid mistakes on this panel, thank God that I'm in Switzerland and in Davos. I'm sure all of you will pardon me and allow me to carry on. I have a request to AI House. If you guys like this panel, and if the audience says in a minute about the panel through the round of applause, then please bring me again on AI House. I come to Davos. This is my 11th year at Davos, and I can't tell you how happy I'm with this panel than many other panels I've done, because all of these guys are amazing experts. They ducked all my accusations with the right answers. They provided the right kind of thing. It's been one of the most dense and most power-packed sessions to deal with a topic which is so complex, has issues in human, in society, in businesses, and in academics. So with that, if you loved it, this time not a paid round of applause. If you loved it, round of applause, please.